So AI. So we'll get clicking and go through here. So a couple of quick things to just make sure as we're talking about AI, just a little bit of kind of definition stuff, right? So again, we talked about, I said this earlier, but kind of recapping, we're going to talk about marketing, content creation. That's the stuff Chloe's doing on a day-to-day, business productivity, stuff that we're doing in our office, the things that we're using it for, and data analytics. The data analytics part is a little bit shorter, and some of that is because data analytics very much depends on the data that you have, and you can wrestle with it and some other stuff, but we'll touch base on all those. There is a couple of quick other things that I wanted to touch on is what we're talking about here generally is either Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT. When we're using ChatGPT, like Chloe's going to talk about some of the marketing stuff and creating agents, that requires the paid version. You can also use Copilot and other ones to do that. What we have found is Copilot tends to be really good on business productivity things. ChatGPT tends to be slightly better on some of the marketing things. And so, we use a combination of. And generally, we're using the paid tools. So just as you guys know, but I think the paid tool for ChatGPT is $20 a month, and Copilot's 20 or $30 a month. So they're not outrageously expensive. And depending on what you're doing with it, there's different ones. There's Anthropic and a bunch of other ones. Some of them are better at, say, code, and some of them are better at different other aspects of like the marketing or reading agreements or contracts, things like that. The other thing that we see happen a lot is a lot of the time people will talk about AI and it may or may not be actual AI. So non-generative AI is stuff, well, let me back up. So generative AI is something that gives you an output. And Chloe, feel free to interrupt me here because she just went through all this at school and got like years of all of the knowledge that she got as she graduated tech recently. And anyways, but the non-generative AI like Power BI, Power Automate, there's a lot of tools out there that they say they're doing AI and they're really just automation tools. Some of them use AI to help make decisions in the automation, but generative AI would be something where you're asking it to produce, to generate information, documents, whatever that might be. And then the other tools, the non-generative is generally trying to help it make decisions. So we use like Power Automate and Power BI to create dashboards. Those aren't really using AI. It's just we can plug it into all these different APIs, and then once a month you hit a button and it generates all these reports and gives you this information aggregated from other places. And some places, companies, tools will say, we're using AI because it's this buzzword, but it's not necessarily always that way. A good example of that is, and this is walks the line, but we use a company that you can basically search for, hey, here's this problem. It's a knowledge base kind of thing. And it searches all of our tickets and it searches our documentation tools and it even searches the internet. And then it says, here's stuff that kind of fits that, right? And so in doing that, they claim to be an AI tool. What they really are is a really good search tool with a basic set of decision making, like here's the top results we want to kick in. That one doesn't make sense. So it's not like actually this really, really powerful AI tool, but it is a really powerful search tool. So we just want to make sure we kind of hit that up front so you guys know that sometimes there are differences. Everybody wants to be AI because it's the buzzword. It's kind of, I don't know if you remember, I always equate it back to like when there was 4G and then there was LTE and then AT&T had like 4G Edge or some other things, and really they weren't the true levels of the connectivity technology. It was everybody was giving it their marketing terms and marketing spin to try to seem like it was bigger, badder, cooler, and faster than it may have been. And AI is currently that flavor. So you'll definitely see some of that as we get into that. So with that, I will kind of hand it over to Chloe and we'll start talking through the marketing pieces. So just let me know when you want to bounce slides, Chloe.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. You can go ahead and go to the next slide.
And you're a little quiet, just if you talk a little loud.
I can try and talk a little louder. Is that a little bit better?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So generally, I know it's pretty consistent that content creating and writing can feel like a full-time job in itself, especially if you're not the marketing person for your team or you don't have a marketing person. So being able to incorporate tools like any generative AI can be a huge help. And this just generally they can give you a good start on your draft. So whether you're doing blog posts, articles, social media posts, emails, any sort of content creation, AI will give you a really great start. So, and that can be for repurposing your content as well. So let's say you have a really great blog post, but you want to turn it into an email campaign. You can throw it into ChatGPT or Copilot and say, let's repurpose this for a social media, and then I will make it a little bit shorter, a little bit longer, and you can customize it completely by adjusting your prompts. So a few examples being blog posts, social media, but the beauty of it is it can take several hours worth of work and put it into one final polished personality that you can bring to your marketing. So we can look at a couple tips and tricks for prompts. Mike, if you want to switch to the next slide. Okay, so I broke it down into these 4 main tactics. So first is going to be defining your audience and your goal. Who are you writing to and what action are you wanting to take? Second is setting up the format and the style of the content that you're trying to write. Is it a blog post, a LinkedIn caption, a copy, email, whatever it is you're trying to produce? You definitely want to let ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever tool know that what you're trying to produce so that they can make sure that the content lines up with that medium. Third would be to be very specific. Don't be vague at all. Add word count or even keywords that you want to include. This can be huge when writing for web content or even social media captions. I like to include phrases like write this blog web page caption to include SEO keywords. And SEO stands for search engine optimization. So think about Google. When you are searching anything into Google like best pizza near me or how to fix a leaky faucet, you're going to get a list of websites. Most generally, people will click on one of the first few results, and search engine optimization is a way to include content in your writing that helps you rank in that first couple on the list when you're going to things like Google. Fourth would be reiterate and test variations. So while it's completely okay to use the first thing that ChatGPT or Copilot gives you, I would recommend asking for a couple different versions of it so you can take, tweak, combine, and then overall get the best results for what you're looking for. Another pro tip is to always check for accuracy. All generative AI are trained with what's called an LLM or a large language model. A large language model is essentially a database pumped full of content that the generative AI uses to pull all its information from. Every single time we go into ChatGPT or Copilot, we're adding to the LLM. So in a perfect world with AI, if 1 million people go into ChatGPT and tell it the sky is red, then the next person who asks ChatGPT what color is the sky, it would say red because it has more data to support that response than the truth. So you have to be careful about what it generates to you to make sure that it is accurately representing what you want to put out there. So for your branding in your company, you might ask it, I could go in and say, hey, I want a blog post, but I want it to come from Mike's voice. Now ChatGPT or Copilot would go to our website. It would look up Mike online and pull content that he's published in the past and try to mimic his voice. So an important step would be to go in, read it, and make sure that there's accurate information in there. It might say that Mike is, 77 years old, which is not true. So you might want to just go in and make sure that things are correct in there. So if you apply these go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say one of the things I was going to just quickly add is like the be specific, not vague, and some of the other stuff, like the generic kind of goofy thing is treat it like it's in second grade, right? The more specific you ask, the more questions you ask. It's kind of like if you think about if you guys have ever done the example or seen online of how do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and if you follow every command literally, that's sometimes what's happening, right? So it's like get a knife and put it in the peanut butter, and then inevitably somebody throws it in end first, right? Like the wrong end in, handle in. And so it's not that kids are dumb, and it's not that these AIs are dumb, but sometimes it can either be literal or the more expansive the prompt is, the more specific the prompt is, and this is what Chloe's talking about. Then usually the better results that you will get out of it because you can steer it into that. And then we'll talk later as well about how I had to wrestle with it on some of the data analytics because it was just giving me wrong data. And so how you want to double check on some of those to make sure it's right. But go ahead, Chloe.
Okay, perfect. We do have a question about specific prompt templates. Mike, if you want to go to the next slide. I gave some examples that we can work with, and then hopefully this will help you guys be able to write your own. And this webinar is being recorded. So we will be posting it on our website afterward if you ever want to go back and reference these prompts and use it to help build your own. So I have 2 examples here. The first one is write me a blog post about cybersecurity. Very generic, any AI can pull that and give you a decent post. But if you elevate it using the 4 points that we just discussed, you can give it a prompt like, Write me a 500-word blog post to go on my website and social media platforms that discuss the need for cybersecurity in the healthcare industry. Write it at a 5th grade reading level, and then add a call to action at the end, linking it back to my website. Editing the prompt to give it the word count, the medium it's going to be published on, a specific audience that you're intending it to go to, and even having it say add a call to action, that will give you a much better output that will be directed to the type of content you want, the length of content you want, and the medium that you're trying to publish it to. So those few little things, although they seem like it might not help a lot, can make a world of difference when you're getting outputs from these generative AIs.
Yeah.
The next prompt that I gave was write me an email to send promoting an upcoming webinar. So I used our webinar as an example. And then just using those same tools and tactics, I changed it to write me a 200-word email promoting my upcoming webinar about using AI to boost your marketing or boost your business. We'll be discussing marketing, general business, and data analytics. Format this email to include the catch and opening line and a place for the registration link. Use rhetorical tactics to appeal to a general audience across multiple industries. Write content to place the reader as the ideal audience for this webinar. Now, a better way to go in and get customized content for a specific audience is to create your own GPT, which we would love to run down and give you guys all the information on how to do that right now, but we simply don't have time. So Mike, if you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Perfect. At the end of this webinar, there will be a QR code that you can scan that'll take you to our website with information on how to access a video where I walk you through step by step on how to create your custom GPTs. Stephen, I see your question about entering large data and documents into the AI prompt. Yes, you can absolutely load files in, and that is a great way to teach AI and train it on your brand. So when you are creating these GPTs, if you do want to go watch that video, you'll be able to put in these documents when you're creating the GPT. So it basically is building its own large language model. So there's a set group of information that it's pulling from.
Yeah, and one thing to be careful of though is like this is the danger. So there's a few things. This is the IT guy side, right, of AI and the cybersecurity side of it. One, you don't want to put identified information. If you put like marketing documents and things you can find on the website and other things, that I'm not worried about that stuff. But like if you upload patient information, that's a HIPAA violation because it's technically a public pool, right? So there's a few things you can do. Like with Copilot, Microsoft, if you're paying for it, has a separate data lake. You can set things up differently where you can give it more sensitive information. But I would say one of the things, and we don't necessarily cover it in here, but one of the things you do want to look at in your business is basically having an acceptable use policy for AI. Who can use AI? What can you put into it? Because you can upload things, but what you might want to do is spend 5 minutes going through the Word document and deleting references to your business or your name, and then upload that if that's what you want to do. It's and depending on the tool and everything else. But just because you're using ChatGPT paid version doesn't mean that it's going to keep all of your stuff in a walled garden or whatever, right? Like it could end up being kind of public data, and so you have to think about that. Like, what would I be okay? Where could I put this? Is this okay if it's public data? And if the answer is no, be really, really careful, right? And like I say, there's like HIPAA and some of these other regulations, like you have to protect people's data. So you need to be careful of that, whether it's just anonymizing it or again using a captive kind of like Copilot with the paid version where when you're on the business side of it, you can actually restrict it. If you build the custom agents, you can even say here's, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but with the custom agents with Copilot and Copilot Studio, you can actually say like, here's the data you can have. You can't access the internet, right? Like this is the data. It lives here. This is all I want you to see. So yes, you can upload data and it is a great way to do it. I just the IT cybersecurity side says make sure you're careful, make sure you're not violating any regulations or privacy policies or things like that, because that is, a possible thing to do. And if you really want to use AI, like that's one of the things too, at the end of it, give us a shout. We're happy to talk through that and even maybe say, hey, based on what you want to do, you should get Copilot and do these settings and this and this. And if you do that, you'll have a secure enough environment that you can do the things that you want to do versus if you just want to analyze generic data. those kinds of things. So I've got a graph I'll show later, and I'll talk about it a little bit more there. But we anonymized that data before I dumped it into ChatGPT and started asking it questions on what to do with it. So.
Great, it's like, well, that is all I have for the marketing stuff. Does anyone have any questions or anything I can clarify? Any additional information that we didn't cover that you want us to touch on?
On the
You can post it in
marketing.
the chat,
Well,
or you can put it in the Q&A and I can respond to you.
yep. And then, like I said, or like Chloe said, we've this model that we have, there's a couple of, models you can pull into it or whatever, but the one that she'll share that video to, or the QR code with the link so you can get it, that one is how to build like a custom marketing AI essentially agent. And so what that does is it's based into ChatGPT. So it's just using ChatGPT, but you feed it this information through prompts, right? You basically say, this is me, this is my model, this is who I am, this is our ideal client. And then I need you to act like that. Now, tell me things that you find interesting, or tell me, things that would benefit you and whatnot. And that's some of these things. That's where AI can get really cool. Because if you say, "Hey, I need you to pretend to be a builder, and what are your top concerns about blank?" It's going to go read through, all this data, this forums and internet stuff, and all these other things, and go, "Hey, we see that people that build custom homes often complain about blank, blank, and blank." And that kind of stuff is the stuff that's harder to do. So the other question there about the law firm, I think, yeah, like some of the data I've seen, and this is where it gets careful. Like you want to make sure you double verify all of these things in terms of the data, but some of the AI models are getting to the point where they can, are, like 95% of contract reading of an actual lawyer, right? They're getting really good at reading that. But there are also, as I say, that cases of um, early AI models making up law, right? They just, based on the case of Johnson versus, this is what the law said. That case never happened. It made it up. It was totally fake. So you want to make sure that you don't fall into that trap. But what it can do, and again, I've talked to this a little bit later, is you can use it to challenge, like upload a document and say, what about this? What about this? What about this? And then ask it, where'd you get that from? What section was that answer out of? And then you can go and kind of verify that for yourself if you need to. But I was having it analyze, 300-page documents and asking it questions. That's really hard for a person to do, but it can remember all 300 pages, right? And so that's where you can ask it questions and kind of poke and prod and push. And then again, you want to go confirm some of that with whether it's confirm it with a lawyer, or if you are a lawyer, go make sure that the case law or whatever it's referencing is real. Because one of these lawyers stood up in court, that was the whole news story, and started referencing fake case law, and the judge just tore him apart. Like, what are you talking about? That's not even real. And that's a quick way to get in a whole heap of trouble. So when you start using any of this AI stuff, I would always say try to verify, be skeptical a little bit, and make sure that it's good and that you're getting good data and the models are getting better and better. But the other day, my kids asked some stupid question, and it was, like what animal has the biggest whatever pound for pound, and it gave me a list, and one and two were switched. It was like the blue whale, which is the biggest mammal, has this, and then the next whale, it weighs that. Well, the next animal actually, that body part was bigger, right? You can probably guess, but it was bigger, but it had it listed because the blue whale was bigger. And so I asked it, "Hey, Chat GPT, based on your answer, it looks like one and two are wrong. Like you flipped them." And it goes, "You're right." And it gave me the new list. So sometimes weird stuff like that happens, which is why you just want to make sure that when you're looking at some of the stuff that you kind of verify it and that it's generally good with all of it. Um, so I want to kind of touch on data analytics. And like I said, you can get into a whole lot of stuff with this. The reason why we'll go through data analytics a little bit quicker is simply because this is the stuff you want to double verify, especially that like legal, that kind of thing. But this was a good example of what we did is we took a month's worth of data. So it was over 3,500 data points of tickets that we got in a month. So one, any of you guys that are clients on here know that we're dealing with on average 3,600 tickets per month that come in. A lot of those are monitoring and other alerts, but what I asked is I dumped the data in. And what's funny is I asked it at first, I said, "Hey, can you show me number of tickets created by day of the week off of this sheet?" And it looked at it and it kicked out a number, and it was like one ticket on this day, one ticket on this day, and three tickets on this day. And I said, "You're not looking at all the data. There's 3,500 data points on this spreadsheet. why are you only showing me 4? He goes, oh, I'm sorry. You wanted me to use all of the data? And I said, yes, you need to use all of the data to tell me how many tickets are created by day of the week. So it kicked this graph out, which is much more accurate, and said, hey, here's the data points. So as you can see, what we can do is look at this and go, hey, Mondays are busy. We know that. We can tell you that, and it's busy. And so I asked it to break it out by hour of the day. Well, the problem was it's in 24-hour format. That's okay, but the leading zero was missing. So instead of it being 00:00, 01 or whatever, it was 0 : whatever. So I'd have to go fix that data because the AI model looked at it and go, I don't understand. It's missing the leading zero. Now I could probably ask it questions. And one of the things I did is when it first got the data, the date and the time were in the same column. So I said, for you to read this, can you split the day and the time into 2 separate columns? And it did, and it gave me a new spreadsheet. And it was all accurate, but it was 3 digits instead of 4, where there was a leading zero. It just took the leading zero off. And so like that's one of those things you just need to look at, and you could either fix the data or ask it to or whatever it might be. And so, like I say, what was interesting about this is in our case, right, we could dig into it. And like for me, Friday usually feels slower for us. So then I would say, well, why is Friday higher than Monday, Tuesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? I swear I can talk. And so we would dig into that and look at that and try to figure out like, is it really? Is the model hallucinating? Did it do something silly? And if not, then we want to break down those tickets a little more and say, well, what happened on Friday that drove that up? And maybe one Friday this last month when we pulled the data, something happened and a bunch of tickets got generated on a Friday, right? Like that could be possible. And so if you analyze the data, you might go, oh, it was that one time and a whole bunch of servers went down, or we lost our internet connection for a little bit or whatever. I'm making stuff up, but like, so our tool wasn't able to connect to servers for a little, and that generated an extra 500 tickets on a Friday afternoon. Okay, well that could give you different data then, right? But what's interesting about it and why I think it's can be useful is you can then dig into that where if you went to try to analyze 3,600 data points, 3,500 data points on your own, it's going to take you longer. It took it, even with me arguing it, about 3 or 4 minutes to generate this document. So if in 3 or 4 minutes I can generate this and dig into that, it would have taken me longer to try to go do graphs and aggregate data and all the other stuff. And that is a lot of the benefit when you're talking about data analytics is kind of doing that stuff and getting into it. So you can see my prompt was, can you show me a graph of tickets created by days of the week? And this is, I guess I asked that at first and it gave me a little bit of the wrong numbers. And I said, you're not using all the data. And it goes, oh, okay. And then it gave me this chat. The other advantage of AI when you're doing any of these things is it's a conversation with it. So if you're doing Google searches and you're using AI like Google searches, it doesn't remember the last question. Google doesn't, but AI will. So you can say, hey, show me this. Well, in reference to this, show me this now. Now you gave these answers. What about this? And AI can help handle that. That's where a lot of these things can be good. And so even in that, some of the other, I would say, practical uses in data analytics is ask questions about data, like the previous slide. You could do sales analysis. Hey, how many widgets do we sell? What's our fastest growing sales widget? What's the highest dollar product that we sell? What's the margin? And again, I would want to verify that it's reading that data correctly, at least the first few times. But this is the stuff I think that, you can really kind of dig into and start looking at sales improvements. This could be general business or that, but like, where could we go find sales improvements? What is our worst product? Do we carry any inventory that we don't sell more than X amounts of in a year? And it can give you lists. Like if you feed that data into it, then you can ask it questions and start to find things that might be easier than you trying to correlate a bunch of data. You could even have it look at things like, hey, can you analyze this P&L by month and find which category is growing the fastest or shrinking the fastest, or where do you think we could save money? And it could give you good answers, or like Robert put in the thing, he raises chukar, which if you guys don't know are birds. If you use the wrong line, it might tell you, go kill the birds. Well, usually AI is trying not to tell you to kill stuff, but it might be one of those if you go, hey, what's a great way to increase sales? And it'd be like, fire all your employees and you'll have more profit, right? Like that's not a practical thing, but sometimes you'll get weird answers. So that's why I say you've got to keep your brain as you keep going through this. So on the general business side, we'll kind of talk through this. This is stuff I think, that you guys can use quite often and day to day. Some of this is really pretty easy stuff, right? Summarize meetings, summarize or edit emails, summarize documents, and I've got some individual slides on all these. And then the cooler stuff we'll get into is creating agents to help employees navigate SOP or HR docs. You can have it help write SOPs, job descriptions, boring things, and you can spar with it. And so I'll show you an example of what I did is just a quick prompt to kind of get some ideas, and it was a fake made up scenario. But with emails, I sat here and fooled with this, and this depends on again what you're using. Like ChatGPT doesn't probably have access to all your emails, but Copilot does. If you're in Microsoft 365 or if you're in Google, their Gemini probably can get access into that environment as well. So I asked it questions like, "Hey, what important emails are unread from the last week?" And it gave me a list. And I said, "Can you summarize my emails from the day?" And it gave me a summary so you can kind of go back and see, did I miss something? Was there a thing I was supposed to respond to that maybe I didn't respond to? Let me look at the summary. You can ask it to list emails from a specific user, which sometimes is easier and better than the search functions that might be built into it. And it may give more context depending on the ask that you have of it. You can have AI help craft responses. So you could write up an email and then dump it into it. I'm sure a lot of you guys are doing some of this, but like, hey, can you change this to be more professional? Or can you change this to be more playful? Or I'm having this disagreement. I want to send this email and I want to make sure I don't make anybody mad when I do it. Can you help me write that in a tone that is empathetic and reasonable? And so if you're not an empathetic person or whatever, like that can be a really good tool that you can soften language, especially in things like email where people don't tend to read tone, they read their own tone. And so if they think you're mad, they're going to read it in an angrier kind of tone than if they think that you're happy. Um, and so those are the kinds of things that, like I say, I think you can go do that kind of thing. There's one, I need to notify clients of X update. Can you help me write an email that's around 100 words that explains why we need to do blank? And again, back to like Chloe was talking about the marketing, a lot of the time you ask the question and then you might modify it 10 or 20% to make it your own. But I know I have sat there for like 5 minutes going, how do I want to write this? Right. And you're wasting that time and you don't think about it. And if you just ask it a question, it can kick something out and get you flowing a little bit and go, okay, I can edit this, tweak this, that's good, bang, next. And those little 3 minute, 5 minute, 10 minute things can really add up over time. And so even though it seems like everybody would say, yeah, I get it, we could use AI to write emails, it can be really helpful in a lot of instances, especially when you're stuck on stuff. Documents can be another one, right? Who loves creating job descriptions? Who loves creating job postings? Who loves creating SOP documents? So there's a lot of things that you can do to say, hey, can you create a document to do this? Or you jot down a bunch of random steps and you feed it into AI and say, can you make this into a more coherent document to do X, Y, Z? Here's my steps so far. And it can help you make that into a much better document than what you might have done on your own. And it can do it fairly quickly. You can have it do presentations, although honestly, like with Copilot and ChatGPT, I've been fairly generally underwhelmed and unimpressed whenever it made presentations. Like Chloe made this one, not AI. Man, that's why it's a much better slide deck, is because usually the AI stuff is either more generic or you have to get very specific in the prompting. I want a slide deck. I would like this kind of background. I would like it to look this way. It can help with that, but you have to be very, very specific or you're going to get a fairly generic kind of output. One of the things I had mentioned earlier, right, and this goes back to the would it benefit a law firm, is questions about agreements or contracts. So if you're going to sign up for a service, you could feed the contract into it and say, how can I cancel it? If I'm not happy, is there a way for me to cancel this agreement? And when it says yes, you can cancel it. You can go, where is that in the agreement? On page 4. Now you go read page 4. You don't have to read 15 pages of document. You can go look at page 4 and try to see if that's it. Is there anything else I need to know? What else, for what other reasons could I cancel the agreement? What reasons can I not cancel the agreement for, right? And you can ask it those questions and have it give you the data where it found that, and kind of back and forth spar with it, right? Hey, does this agreement auto renew? And if it does, how much notice do I need to give to not auto renew, right? So maybe you're signing up for a service and you want to find out if it's going to auto renew. If you don't cancel it 30 days out, it's automatically another 12 months, that kind of thing. And so you can feed it some of these agreements, documents, whatever it might be, hey, here's a lease. What's the penalty if I do blank? Who's responsible if this happens or that happens? And kind of spar with it a little bit. And what I would generally recommend is if you're going to go do something, especially around these agreements and dollar amounts are bigger or a lease or something like that, is use it to spar out with your thoughts, get a better idea, then go talk to a lawyer. But what that can really save you is time, money, energy, and effort, because if I can go have an hour conversation with a lawyer because I've already fleshed out a bunch of thoughts ahead of time versus having a 2 or 3 hour conversation with a lawyer, then that's going to cost you a lot more money. So if I spend an hour kind of sparring with the AI model, getting some information on this agreement, whatever it is, that could help you down the road. And so again, you can use this to help it read, other documents, HR documents, create HR documents, feed your own handbook into it and say, what's my liability if this happens? Or if an employee does this, and what's my recourse? And you can ask it those kinds of questions to either identify weak areas in the handbook or to make sure that it's well explained and it seems to be written out well and you get the same kind of numbers and data out of it. And one of the things I like a lot is the custom agents things. Now, in these custom agents, a lot of them, like the ones that I'm talking about here with SOP and HR, these ones are specifically, we've tested them in Copilot. We've built the HR one internally. We're building the SOP one, and we're building it for another client of ours. And it does require a thing called Copilot Studio. So there's some extra expense on the back end of this. But if your company is big enough or have enough need, this can be a really huge actual time and cost saver, right? If you don't have in-house IT or HR and you want to ask HR questions, well, that usually falls to the business owner. But if instead I could feed all my HR document into a custom model and then people can ask that, then they can probably get better answers out of that. They can ask it quickly and then they can clarify with you. And again, instead of it being a 20-minute or a 30-minute conversation, it's a 2-minute confirming, yeah, that's fine, you're right. Or whatever it might be. And so what we did with our HR one is we basically put walls around it and we said, here's all of our HR documents. This is the only thing that you can reference and know in the whole wide world. We don't care about other people's HR. We don't care about anything. This is the area that you can live in. This is the knowledge you can have. If you can't find it here, your answer is, I don't know. So we built that model out using Copilot. And now employees can go and say, hey, what's our PTO policy? When's the next holiday? And you'll find interesting things. Like one of the things you have to say is, when's the next holiday from today? Because if you just ask, when's the next holiday, it might say, well, the first one in the list is New Year's. That's your first holiday, right? Versus if you say, hey, today, it knows what today is, but you just have to say, hey, from today, what's the next holiday? Oh, Labor Day. It's coming up on Monday. You guys are off, right? Like it can answer that. But if you just say, what's the next holiday, it might give you just the first one in the list. So again, that's where some of the specific ask gives you a better answer and better data. But what's our policy for blank? What's our policy for this? And so one of them that we're working on is we've got a company that does a bunch of home health, and a lot of the people have tablets. And so right now, if you are a new employee and you break your tablet, one, you're embarrassed, you're not sure what to do. You got to go talk to somebody, you're scared you're going to get yelled at. Maybe you sit on it for a day or two and you try to figure out how to get around the system or whatever else. Where if instead I could just go into an AI chatbot and go, hey, I broke my tablet, what do I need to do? And I can get an answer out of that. Here's the SOP and the exact document on the steps you need to follow to contact Vector Choice to get a replacement, approved and sent and blah, blah, blah. That makes that really, really easy, right? What's the benefits website? I have an HR question. I need to go ask that. Or I want to go, I can't remember where our payroll website is. Where's the payroll website? And if all that's documented in the information you've given it, in your SOPs or your HR documents or whatever, you're building, it can go find that, right? I even goofily said like who's in charge of marketing or whatever. If your diagram, your company, what was I want to say family tree, but what I'm saying, the org chart.
Like an organization chart.
Yeah, it's not a family tree. If your org chart's up there, then it should be able to say, oh, this person's in charge of that. And so again, if you live in this kind of side world, if I'm a new employee here at our company and I'm a new tech and I'm trying to figure out if I have a sales question, who do I go to like a customer does? And I don't know. I mean, I can ask other people, but I could also ask the bot pretty quickly. And if I can ask the bot and get the answer, I don't have to interrupt somebody from their task. That adds productivity to the day, all those little things that get added up. And so again, some of the value and the perceived value is how big you are, how many of these questions get asked. But I would venture to say companies of just about any size, people always have questions about what's the handbook say on this or that, or I don't know how to do this, or what is it? And one of the big problems we see is, if you really want to run a very scalable business, eMyth and all these other people, you can go out and read books and everything else. It's about creating standards and processes and everything for people to follow. This is how we do it. And the problem with that on the other side of it is if you've created 100 SOPs on how to do everything from clean the toilet, which you might laugh at, but if you've ever read like what is it, 2 Minute Lean or something, maybe it's 7 Minute Lean, 60 seconds to lean, I forget, but there's the guy runs Fast Cap, which is a manufacturing plant in the Northwest, and they have like, this is how you clean the bathroom our way, right? And it's just so then they know, like, this is where the cleaner is. This is nobody, day one, anybody could walk in and go, if my job is to clean the bathroom, I know how to do it. It's right there. That's really handy if you're trying to figure out how to do stuff. But if I have 150 policies, how the heck do I find the right one, especially if I'm new and I don't even know the whole org chart? But if I can just know, I can go to this bot and I can ask it, hey, I need a policy on how to request time off, or what's the policy on when a customer yells at me, or what's the policy on whatever it is. I need to know, is there a checklist for setting up a new computer? Bam, here's the SOP. This is what you need to do, right? Like all of that, it can dump it out. That's where I think there's a lot of this really, really cool productivity stuff that can come out of this, that you can kind of go and chase some things down. Now, on the other side, as we kind of wind down through some of this, is one of those where I said go spar with AI, right? So I jokingly asked it. I said I have a disagreement with a coworker. I feel like we should hire 20 people tomorrow to help with our workload, but they want to do it over the next 6 months. What questions should I be thinking to understand their point of view, and how can I best convey my point of view? Right? Like, and I'm not saying we're all running out and trying to hire 20 people, but you could ask multiple questions like this. And so its output says this kind of disagreement's common when balancing urgency to planning, better to understand your coworker's perspective. Here's some strategies. And then it gave me some examples. Here's some questions that you should ask, right? What risks do you see in hiring the 20 people immediately? Hopefully I could figure that out on my own, but a lot of the time you don't, right? You're blind to it, or you're so invested in it, you don't see it. So, and it even says underneath, right? This will help you uncover concerns about onboarding, budgeting, culture fit, who's going to train them, how are we going to train them, whatever else. So if I can ask that question, I can understand your point of view, right? What benefits do you see over spreading it 6 months versus trying to hire them now? How do you envision managing the current workload in the short term, right? Like, so here are these questions, and then I could spar back and forth and say, well, if they say this, what other things should I think about? If they say blank, should I ask why? And you can kind of go back and forth and try to understand a point of view, or just look for blind spots in your own point of view to try to figure out like what's the best way to have this conversation if we're really, stuck. And then another thing that it even said on it was, here's how to effectively convey your point of view, frame it around the impact and the urgency. Hey, man, our current workload, we can't deliver the quality, we can't meet deadlines. We're going to burn all our people out. Like, those are my things that I want to talk about, right? And you could use examples. So again, it gives examples here, propose a hybrid solution. Again, we don't need to hit every bullet point because this is a fake argument, but the point being, you can spar with it. And even on this, I would say, like on the sales side, you can do the same thing. You can create a custom agent, feed it all of your marketing and sales information, and then you could start asking, hey, I am this buyer. What are my objections going to be? How would you overcome those objections? What would the pain point for this be? Or if I'm a new salesperson, I could even just ask, like, what's the SOP for this? What's the value of this feature? What's the benefit of this feature? How should I sell this? And it can give you some ideas to get some information and work through some things. And then you can go and ask somebody, right? Like, but it can help with the training. It can help with some of these things, especially if you're feeding it in your data, not just general data. But you got to remember, it's digested sales data from all across the internet. Some of it's stupid and terrible, and some of it's really, really good. And so it's one of those things where, again, how do you ask it? How do you kind of spar with it? How do you, I have a customer that says this, and what do you think? And you can go back and forth with a lot of these things and try to figure out what the real answers are. And that can be a real improvement, time saver, trainer, all those kinds of things that you might not normally think of. So that being said, this is the QR code. If you go scan that, or it will kick you over to our website into a form you can fill out, and Chloe will get you the video of the marketing custom chat GPT. So you guys can use that one, the prompting and everything else, to help with social media posts and everything else. That kind of deal. The other thing I would say in that is if we got forms all over our website, you can fill them out, or just email us or call us. If it's something where you go, hey, I would really love to talk about how can I use AI in my business, we'd love to have that conversation. And like I say, some of it might just be, I want to create a dashboard of financial reports for the end of the month. That may not even be AI. That might just be, hey, we can do a project with Power BI, Power Automate. We can pull all these data in. We can show it up on some great dashboards, or generate some Excel files, or whatever it is that you want. So if you've got those kinds of needs, we would love to talk to any of you guys, whether you're, current clients or not, and just kind of have those conversations, because a lot of the time that's how this stuff starts, right? Somebody says something and finds something that's annoying. We had one client that one of the techs basically overheard about their PO process being a pain in the butt. So he asked a few more questions, and then we came back and we talked. We got an engineer, we chatted with them a little more, and we ended up building SharePoint forms, which was a really easy solution to it. It didn't cost him anything ongoing, a little bit of a project for us to do it, right? But we built these SharePoint forms that now they fill in the request and it notifies the next person, and then they approve it and it notifies the next person. It was this really simple thing for them to do, and it saves them a bunch of time, energy, and effort. And it was just, they just had to raise their hand and say, hey, this seems stupid. Is there a better way to do it? And we found a better way to do it. So with that, that is really honestly all we have. Like I said, we were shooting for this thing to be about 40, 45 minutes plus questions. So I don't know if anybody else has any other questions. I don't see any in the chat. Are there any in the Q&A, Chloe, or?
I don't see any in the Q&A, so if you guys have any, you can drop them here, we can stay on a couple extra minutes, make sure all of your questions get answered. I did wanna say the video, of how to create a custom GPT is not up on the website yet. It will be by the end of the day. So if you
Yep.
scan this QR code or just go to vectorchoice.com, under webinars, we will have the link to our upcoming webinar and all the information there. There's a form fill to reach out to us for any questions. There will be the link to the video, and there will also, if you fill out that same form, then we can send you the step-by-step instructions on how to create the custom GPT. So all of those resources are already on the website or will be available by the end of the day. And of course, you can always email us, call us, if you can't find it, and we will make sure to get you all of these resources.
Yep, for sure. With that, you guys have a fantastic rest of your week, a great Labor Day, and we hope to hear some of you guys. We'd love to help you plug AI and other things in your business and find ways to help make you more productive as you go.
Thank you guys.